right way. I just think that people will talk. Yeah. Well, and I think we are already councilman first floor job.
No, it was only.
But I would like to before. Ryan and I are out of town from the.
When did I? I'm just gonna try a couple first.
4th to the 14th.
Okay. We'd like to welcome out the Highland City Council meeting on Tuesday, August the 19th, 2025. We're excited to see everyone here. We will begin our meeting with the, with the invocation by myself, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance by Councilmember Kim Radella. Our Heavenly Father, as we begin our meeting today, we begin in a somber heart with the events that have taken place up in the Tremont area. We ask that you might be with those families and with that community as they go through this time, as they've lost 2 other officers, and we ask that you might be able to be with those families, be with that community, and also with the officer that has been harmed, as well as all those others that might be up there helping support. Heavenly Father, we also ask that blessing be upon our community, that we might be able to be watched over and protected, that as we go forth, those here in our community, as different events happen in their life, that they also might be watched over. Heavenly Father, please also be with us tonight as we go through our agenda, that we might be mindful of the things that we've read, and as we look at things that need to be discussed in our city, that we might look to how we might be able to move our city forward. Once again, we're indeed thankful for the beautiful surroundings which we have, the beautiful mountains and the freedoms which we have in our country. We're thankful for this opportunity to be able to be part of an election system as we go forth to be able to elect our different officials, and ask that we might be able to be with our residents as they look upon that. Be with us tonight, that when it comes time for us to go home to be back with our families, that we'll find all well with our families, that all will be well, and help us in our discussion tonight to be able to articulate our thoughts and concerns and our hopes to be able to move forward. And this we say in Jesus Christ, amen. Amen.
I'll stand for the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. At this time, we have set apart for unscheduled public appearances. If you'd please, if there anyone would like to come up, we do not have any public hearings on our agenda, so there will not be time during our agenda where we'll be asking for the public's comments. So if you have any items you'd like to come up and discuss with the City Council, at this time, we'd like to invite you up. Seeing none, we'll now move that portion and close the unscheduled public appearances and move on to our consent items. We have consent item number 2A, which is approval of the meeting minutes from June 17th, 2025. Item number 2B is approval of meeting minutes from July 1st, 2025. And C is approval or ratification of large purchases. Would anyone like to pull any of those items?
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to pull item 2B from the consent
2B.
calendar.
Okay. Anyone else? Okay, with that, we'll take a motion on 2A and 2C.
I move to adopt the consent agenda as amended.
I'll second it.
Okay, I have a motion by Doug, second by Scott. I take it we're up on electronic. Yep.
I'm not logged in yet, so I'll just vote by voice.
Okay, then we're going to do a voice vote. It looks like everyone's kind of, we'll start down here with you, Brittany.
Yes.
Okay, Scott,
Yes.
Doug,
Yes.
and Kim.
Yes.
And Ron, you can go ahead and vote, but we'll also see your vote.
Yes.
Okay, that passes 5-0. We'll now discuss item number 2B. That will be you, Doug.
Yeah, there are 2 items that I'd like to I'll update in the minutes. The first is on item 5A, the Hanover Sewer Repair Bid Award. The draft minutes state that staff recommended awarding a bid in the total amount of $102,792.80. Reviewing the video, Chris quoted a total of $103,332.17, which matches the amount in the motion from the minutes. I therefore propose striking the text $102,792.80 and replacing it with the text 103, 332, and 17 cents in item 5A. And additionally, under item 7C, watering and maintenance of public property, the draft minutes read including green dye on dead grass, but the description of the grass as dead never occurs in the recording, and I believe the grass is dormant rather than dead, and I believe this is the understanding of the council. So to avoid giving the impression that large swaths of grass are dead and need to be replaced, and accurately reflect what I believe council's understanding and intention was during the July 1st meeting, I propose striking the text dead and replacing it with the text brown in item 7C.
I'll second that.
Just on the discussion of that, just in my own lawn, I do have dead grass. I think we have some in the parks because of grubs. When I pulled it up, it was covered in grubs, and they eat the roots out, and that's what creates the dead patches. So I'm not sure our parks are free of that. But having said that, if it was not in, if it wasn't in the discussion, you're right, Doug, this should be. But in future reference, I do believe we do have problems with grubs in our city, and they'll have to be resolved one way or another. So.
I think we'll be hearing about that in one of our agenda
Yep.
as a discussion.
And yes, I'd agree that we probably have both cases, where we have some dead and probably mostly just brown.
Didn't get the fertilization early, etc.
Okay. I have a motion to amend number 5A and 7C underneath 2B. I have a motion by Doug, second by Scott. Is there any further? Okay, seeing none, we will then go ahead and move for a vote on that. And we need to restart. There's refresh.
We probably don't have any electronic one for this since we used the consent agenda items already.
Okay, well, we will go ahead and start down here with you then, Ron.
Yes.
Kim,
Yes.
Doug,
Yes.
and Scott,
Yes.
Brittany.
Yes.
Okay, those are passed 5-0.
And to clarify, we were voting to approve the amended minutes?
We'll now move on to number 3A, which is an action item. It's a plat amendment and a lot combination in Windsor Meadows. And that will be handled by Rob.
Thank you, Mayor and City Council. This is a relatively straightforward plat amendment. It's a lot combination of a lot with an adjacent open space parcel that the city sold. It's located in the Windsor Meadows subdivision. You can see on the north side there the various open space areas we sold. So the lot highlighted in blue, the owners are seeking just to combine their two properties into one so they can do some projects on their property. We mailed notice out to all affected entities and to adjacent residents. We had an objection deadline. It came and went without any objections. Here's the proposed amended plat. You can see it just combines the properties. And then right here, there used to be a public utility and drainage easement. They've gone through the proper process to vacate the public utility easement and conversations with Public Works. It's not a city drainage easement. It's probably just an old one that meant for internal lot drainage. So we had no concerns as staff about vacating that. There's no city facilities in that area. So with that, there's several factors you need to find in order to amend a plat. I walked through those in the staff report, and for the sake of brevity, I won't walk through them again, but basically show that this doesn't really impact anyone else and it's for the benefit of the property owners, and this does meet that. I'm happy to answer any questions, but staff's recommendation is to approve this.
I have a question. So
Yes.
we approved surplusing, if that's a word, the property along this area, 2 or 3 years ago. I know the neighbor to the east has bought the property in that. How many people along that area?
I believe all of them actually have bought it because you
So
can
they've
now
all bought, okay.
Yep, 'cause those
This is
have
the
all now
first
been
time we're
created.
combining both properties? Okay. I just wanted to clarify
So
that.
this is just the first one I think who's coming to actually combine it into one property.
Property.
That's just to help them get one property tax notice. Every one of
removes-
these little slivers here will have their own property tax notice.
Yes, I know several built like fences along the new property line, which is fine, but they wanted to do like a pool and something that has setback issues if you follow the old property line in between them. So
Maybe as a learning moment, so let's assume they don't combine it and they want to do an addition on their home. If that lot, even though they own the adjacent property, if they have amended their lot, is there setback set on property they own or setback on their lot they're trying to do it
it's
on?
measured to the property line. They'd
But
have
which
to go
is the property that they own in the very back or up to
the closest property line.
That's why.
That's right. Yeah. So it
But
makes
this
sense
is
to
administrative,
combine
right?
them.
So why can't the planning commission?
Okay, so that was going to kind of be my question. Why is this coming to council? And maybe you can share that a little bit.
So a little while back, we talked about, due to some state law changes, we adjusted our code to reflect under state law there's a simple boundary adjustment and a full boundary adjustment. The simple one is the one that can be done by staff. They're what we used to call lot line adjustments or parcel boundary adjustments. Staff can still approve those, but as we've talked about several times, the county doesn't, even though under new state law, I've talked with them, the county still doesn't recognize that to remove a lot line that exists in a subdivision plat. The only way the county will recognize that is if they go through and get an approved amended plat. And forever, we've always had the council approve amended plats, which is, in this case, the council doesn't really need to see this. Obviously, you're going to approve this, but there are times where plat amendments do involve policy calls or questions on, how should we remove a restriction on a plat? And those are things we would want the council to look at because it could affect a neighborhood more substantially than this.
And even under our code, I believe this has to come to council because of the easement vacation.
Correct.
Is that?
Yeah, that might.
Wasn't it already vacated, or did we vacate it now?
We're vacating it with this.
With this, okay. Well, that does make sense then, okay.
Yeah.
But
Makes a lot of
Ron,
sense.
you brought up a comment about planning commission. This didn't go to the planning commission.
Nope, plat amendments never go to planning commission.
So that was when you say, hey, how come planning commission's not doing it? This didn't go to planning commission.
You could designate the planning commission as the approval body.
Well, that's because it does happen, you're vacating easements, which is a
Easements,
right.
yeah.
The city has a certain right we're giving up.
Yeah.
And so,
Well, that part of it totally makes sense.
Makes sense.
okay, do we have a motion for
So
this?
can I ask one more question?
Yes.
So Rob, did they have to pay a fee to have this done?
Yes,
How much?
several. So they paid a $550 plat amendment fee, I believe. Maybe it was $490.
Okay.
And then there's a $25 public utility easement vacation fee that they paid. They also paid to have a survey done of their property, and then an additional cost to prepare the amended plat, which was in the thousands of dollars to do this. So they paid fees to us to go through this application process, and also paid a substantial amount of money to an engineer to get this put together.
Okay. So all those people along there that have purchased the property, unless they want to build an addition or a pool or what these neighbors are doing, they don't have to go through this process, right?
Nope. Nobody has to go through the process. It just is a benefit if they want to build over that lot line.
And long-term, it's probably a good thing, but it's expensive. I
Correct.
just wanted to clarify how much they'd have
Now,
to spend.
Rob, some of this is because the way the county will not accept it. Is it?
Right.
'Cause I remember talking with you, we were talking quite a bit, going, how come we're making residents go through so much if they own the property? And a lot of it's this recognition by the county. The county will not accept an amended plat unless it comes through this process. And so it's really trying to meet the county requirement.
Yes. We could do a combination using a simple boundary adjustment. We went through that process where we say the city will recognize it even if the county does it. But it does raise the issue that we talked about before, that if they go to sell it, the county records aren't quite as clear as to whether this is really one parcel or two. And this is better long-term for them. They'll be able to sell this easily as one lot. And hopefully others will go through the process, but I understand if they don't, they'll just have to sell two different parcels with their lots in the future.
I'd like to make a motion.
Okay.
I move that the city council approve the Windsor Meadows amended lot 37 subdivision plat.
I'll second it, but I'd like to ask another question. So theoretically, if this lot is combined, okay, would the overall property tax be less than if they have two segments? Now, theoretically, you wouldn't think it would be, but I'm kind of wondering, because there's a charge there if you've got two tax notices coming.
I would guesstimate yes, unless they go and fight with the county, like we saw on that one parcel today. So a standard, so I actually have a parcel where I traded with a neighbor and I have a separate parcel. I'm in the same situation they are, and I get a separate one, and it is much higher
than if it was combined.
if it was combined.
That's what I thought. So in the long run, some of these fees and stuff will come back.
Yes,
I mean,
especially
in savings.
if it gets, so in some ways it's, the tax on that open space parcel will be less because it's not improved, but it's also not part of their primary residence, so it doesn't get that large discount that you get for your primary residence
Primary
property.
resident.
Now, when they combine it, that will count as part of their primary residence, and therefore will be entitled to that discount.
So
that
they get the
county
discount.
imposes.
So eventually it may compensate,
Yes.
like 50 years in the future. So, okay.
Okay, I have a motion by Kim, second by Scott. If there's no further discussions, we will go to vote on this item number 3A. Are you able to log in, Kim? Oh, there we are.
We took a bit.
Okay, and that's a 5-0. Passes 5-0. We'll now move on to number 3B, which is an action item. It's a contract authorization with DLS Consulting. Aaron Wells will handle this.
4 to 1 vote.
4 to 1 vote.
It will be 4 to 1.
Oh,
Mayor and Council, this is a item for you to consider whether or not you would like to renew a contract with DLS Consulting for our lobbyists that we hire to help us with grant funding as well as lobbying at the state legislature. If you could move forward, please. So this would be the 4th year that we would hire Mr. Stewart's firm if council would like to move forward. He has been successful in helping us to obtain grants in each of the 3 prior years. 2 for in our for culinary water improvements, and then the most recent one was for some roadway improvements. For 2026, we're also looking for some roadway improvements, specifically for Highland Boulevard, when we have to pay our costs of putting in the roundabout there. And then, let's see, and then, like I said, Mr. Stewart has also helped us with lobbying efforts at the state legislature. If we have something, while ULCT does a great job providing for cities at large, we often have, at times have things that are very important to just Highland, such as the transportation utility fee and the public safety fee that, you know, we keep talking about them year after year. We think they're going to come up, and we do again think they're going to come up again this year separately to try to get some things passed. So his services would be beneficial in that regard. Overall, if you could go next, it's a $100,000 contract. You know, we discussed this last year, but he breaks it into 12-month payments, so it's actually 1 penny short of that in how he charges us. But currently, we have it budgeted in the Culinary Water Fund just because that's where we had in the first 2 fiscal years funded it out of. We caught it as we were preparing this staff report. We caught today that in the fiscal year 25 budget, we need to move it over into roads because that's where he was able to obtain a grant for us. And we would likely do the same thing for this fiscal year, just in a future budget amendment for you. And with that, I don't think I have anything else unless there are questions that council has.
is there any questions?
So, can I just make a comment? I think it's hard when we have to hire a lobbyist. And I know when I was on the council the first time, we actually fired our lobbyist. But, you know, he's come through for us every year, 10 to 1. I mean, we've made, what, $3 million in grants? Maybe we could have done that by ourselves, but at the same time, I think he has a vested interest because he lives in Highland. And he's come through every year, so it's kind of hard to say, I'm not going to vote for this, especially if he comes through with another $1 million grant. So, you know, I know we've had a lot of discussion in the past. I just kind of, you know, I struggle with this, but I think, oh my goodness, if we're getting $1 million for every 100 we spend, that's a pretty good investment.
I agree with you, Scott.
Yeah.
100%. And until he doesn't deliver, then we have a
Right.
different discussion.
And then we have to have a different
But it's
discussion.
literally, if you give me $1, I'll give you 10. That's hard to pass up.
Especially
And
with the
he's
tight budget.
delivered on that.
Yeah.
So,
And I know there's been a lot of discussions throughout the years. I think it's important that each year we kind of look and evaluate. When I've talked to DLS Consulting, as we do look at the roundabout, they do seem to have, they have kind of earmarked where they believe they can get that funding for us. It appears to be that. I mean, one of the things we struggle with, I think all of us, and it was people ask, and I think I try to explain a little bit more about why would you have a lobbyist? Well, the lobbyist, if you ever go up to state capitol, and I know Kim, you've been up there, I see David Stewart there. I mean, he's welcomed me as I've come in. He's outside as different things. So he's there, even right now, the interim, when they're having different things, he's seeing what bills and trying to help, kind of say, hey, I've got some of my clients, this is some areas where they could use as they're doing their different budget and funding. That's what he's there in those meetings. Now, we are going to he helped us with certain things as different items came up. If it be the school district, the road fee, I'd call Dave, and I know some of the others have talked to him. We do have a couple of things coming up this year that we're going to need to make sure our lobbyists, or that we're with our legislators. You need to get a hold of the legislators, but the lobbyists also, they're the ones sitting there going, hey, you're there. Could you grab them and just kind of give a nudge this direction? Because that's kind of what it is. They're up there most of the legislative time period. And yeah, we can be up there, but David has performed. Like you said, it's hard to, on that. But with that, I don't know if we need more discussion on that.
well, just real quick, on the last, just for transparency here, there seemed to be, I wasn't clear on exactly how he got the funds, and was there some backdoor kind of thing? So I called him, and I talked to him, and he worked through every detail of what he did, and the connections he made, and how it all transpired. And I left feeling really good that there's no backroom things going on. This is above board. It is clean, and it is literally, and this last one was something I doubt we could have done without him because of the connections he had, mainly with Cullimore, but those connections are important. And without those connections, as he walked me through that step by step, I left feeling really good about how above board he is. He's very integral. That's what we want in a lobbyist, right? So I was very pleased.
I just don't see lobbyist and integral is one thing.
I'm sorry, what did you say?
I guess I just lobbyist and integral is the same thing. I guess my thing is, talking to Representative Brady Brammer about this, he was like, I don't understand why you hire a lobbyist. If you just need something, come to me and I can work. I'm your legislator, your representative, and I can work with Cullimore myself for free to get it done. But absolutely, I've seen the benefit of his.
Would Brady have known that? Would we have known that?
I mean, you just go tell Brady.
Well, no, I think this year, we don't stop us from having to go to Brady, too. I mean, we can work both. We can go get $2 million. Does that make sense? So if Brady's there, let's look to see some things we might be able to get. And if we had this, I had no...
let's let him compete.
David Stewart came in because he was recommended, now naturally he lives here, but you're going back several years ago. I remember when they kind of, he was brought in by an old employee of Mountain Land Association of Governments with MAG. He says, hey, you need to be aware a lot of cities he's been very successful with. And so some of it was calling some other cities, and I've even watched those other cities. He's not only performing for us, he's performing for those other cities. And you notice that, even the road funds we got, I'm on MAG, and I was not aware of some of those funds that were kind of loose. I think some of it is just watching where things are at. Does that make sense? You got to watch where those funds are at, and I think he's watching some of that. What's happening?
I was Kim for a minute here.
Oh, that's fine. Okay, with that, do we have a motion? We need to still move forward with this meeting. Do we have a motion?
I was thinking that, oh, never mind. That was the last one. I move that the City Council approve a contract with DLS Consulting, Inc. in the amount of $100,000 and authorize the mayor to sign the contract.
I'll second it.
Motion by Doug, second by Scott. I think we've had discussion on this. And that passes 3-2. Okay, we will now move on to the professional zone. We have item number 3C, which is we're going to be discussing of, I guess there is a professional zone and a text amendment, which we had actually last council meeting with some changes. Rob?
Thank you, Mayor. As Mayor just described, the council has looked at this. Last meeting, we went through it in some detail. If you'd like, I can go through it all again. My thought is you've probably reviewed this. You asked staff to take back those final few changes you wanted to see incorporated, add them into the ordinance so it was a little bit clearer what we were voting on and didn't have to make a really long motion with a bunch of little amendments. So just as a very short reminder, we're removing all of those old exhibits from the PO zone. We're keeping that 1-story and traditional design requirement for those buildings on the east side of Highland Boulevard. We've removed all those old references in the code to the old site plan and specific area. And then we've added or updated code to kind of make those design standards that we want for the PO zone just in our code. So someone can read our code and understand how to build in the PO zone going forward. Since August 5th, we added the industrial businesses and the tattoo or piercing parlors or studios to prohibited uses, removed the natural open space from the landscaping requirements, so they'll just do xeriscape and turf and make it attractive but not encourage the natural look that causes problems. Added a clear definition of walkable habitable roofs for those 2-story, 1-story elements, and then went through and kind of did a lot of cleanup throughout the code. So with that, the Planning Commission looked at this a couple of times and voted approval with some changes. You've already held a public hearing, so no further public hearings required. Happy to make any further changes, but staff is ready to recommend approval at this point, unless we want to have any further discussion or make any final changes to this before it gets adopted. Happy to answer any questions or explain any of the proposed amendments.
This is probably ticky-tacky, but I just don't understand. The metal grills is restricted. And I'm thinking in terms of venting of a gable roof. You're going to have a vent on the end, and what kind of grill facing do we expect if it's not metal?
I think the intent of that is to avoid having, especially like vent type things that are on the exterior walls. Obviously in roof designs, you have to have venting for, proper, per building code, there's a lot of venting requirements, but
Yeah.
we don't want it to have an industrial look on the outside of the wall where you just are venting straight out, and if you have it on the roof, you have to screen that all from view. So I think it was more of an aesthetic choice of saying, if you have your grills, you can't put them on the outside walls of the building where you can see them, essentially.
Yeah. Okay.
I'd just like to say, I'm sorry, I interrupted Doug, I'm sorry. I just want to say I appreciate all the work you've done on this, because this has been an evolution, and you've worked on it several times, so I appreciate it.
Thank you. Appreciate your work as well.
To a different item, and so I just overlooked it on my list from last time. That both the R140 zone and the current PO zone refer back to the definitions for where we measure building height. And because we have specific wording in the new proposed one, that overrides the definitions section, which means that we have removed church towers from the list of things that aren't included when figuring building height, which means that if you built something with a church tower, the entire tower would have to be under the 35-foot as well, which in our current PO zone or R140 zone. So I would simply propose inserting the text, comma, church towers immediately after the text chimneys. It currently reads in 3-49074. It currently reads, building height shall be measured to the highest part of the building, including parapets and other screening features and HVAC and other mechanical equipment, but not including chimneys and similar structures. So I'd propose changing that to match the definition that other zones use to be, but not including chimneys, church towers, and similar structures.
So you're just inserting church towers?
Yes.
Which could be affected in the area.
And if there's nothing else, then I move the City Council adopt the ordinance amending the professional office zoning district regulations and standards with the one amendment discussed.
I'll second it.
Yeah, motion by Doug, second by Scott. Is there further discussion needed? If there's no further discussion, we'll go ahead and, if you can put the vote slide up. Passes 5-0. Moving on to item number 3D, which is an action item, which is an interlocal agreement with Utah County for 4800 West project. That would be Chris, trustee, doing a presentation.
Thank you, Mayor. I wanted to take a step back on this because there's been two different projects that have been applied for funding through MAG, so I just want to make sure the council is aware and understands kind of the scope of each of those. In 2022, Highland, along with Alpine, applied for funding for improvements along 4800 West, which essentially went from Caddy Lane to Main Street to the roundabout in Alpine City. The bulk of these improvements included basically just kind of solidifying the curb line if there was no curb, installing curb and gutter. Not really any essential widening of the project, of the existing right-of-way, but also installing a multi-use trail along that length so that it would provide a trail from the roundabout in Alpine basically to the other trail by the river that crosses underneath there by Caddy Lane. So that was kind of the scope of what was intended. Also some safety improvements at the intersection of Timpanogos Highway and North County Boulevard. Phase 2 was applied for in 2024. I believe that one was applied for just with Highland City. We fell just outside of the funding for that. Funding for that, I think the application was about $9.4 million, and it included a more extensive intersection improvements at that same intersection of Timpanogos Highway and North County Boulevard, right-hand turns for both east and west, and general realignment of some of those lanes of traffic through there.
That loss of funding could be described as the Provo Airport Road access, basically.
Yeah.
Had we had a different decision in 2024, would we have improved our chances of getting that funding, or is it just basically because of the airport?
I think it's basically because of the airport.
Well, some of it's how they rank our thing, up in the ranking. And us in the Cedar Hills project that comes right there by Walmart, we're all caught there. And when they did the airport, which was not on the list,
No.
all of a sudden they chuck it on the list, it dropped us down.
Yeah, the fairness of that doesn't seem right. However, having said that, given the success of that airport, they probably made the right decision. I hate to say that.
Well, they're supposed to go find funding now with the Olympics.
Yeah.
To be able to get funding there to then come back in to start funding these other projects. I think my question is, here we have two projects. So, Chris, what you're saying is one is going to be a trail corridor coming out of Alpine's roundabout all the way down to Caddy Lane, which is $5.4 million. When you look at this other one, if we come into the funding, are they ripping up the same areas? Are they going to have to rip up any of this trail? Are they going to have to disturb this area? Are we wasting money is what I'm asking.
We're not wasting money, especially if we're not doing any significant improvements at the intersection for this first phase, which we're not anticipating as part of this. A lot of the improvements that would come with that second phase are on the west side of North County Boulevard, whereas the trail on this one is just all completely on the east side. So I don't see any removal of improvements done with phase 1 that would happen if we were awarded phase 2.
Will the alignment going north be fixed in this?
It will not be fixed as part of this
We still
project.
have an alignment problem.
We still have some alignment issues.
Because that's the most dangerous
We
part
would-
of that intersection.
We would like to see what we can do as part of this project, and once we get a design engineer, we would like to see what we can evaluate. But it was my understanding that we're kind of, the council has directed us not to get additional right-of-way through that intersection there.
Yeah.
And so with that, we'll have to see what we can do with the existing right-of-way that we have.
I was here, we had some, I guess a good adjective would be lively public hearings on this road in both 2022 and again in 2024. And I think the original proposal actually widened the road extensively all the way up to Alpine, which Alpine apparently voted for without holding a public hearing, because we had the room in 2022 filled with Alpine citizens that were upset. And then in 2024, we did some revisions on purpose. My only concern is, I mean, we've got the maps and stuff now, but I didn't see those in the published agenda ahead of time. I'm actually the one, I think, that wrote the email saying, I don't know which project I'm approving. And I'm just thinking for transparency for our citizens, since we've approved 2 different projects, had a lot of public input, that we really need to produce in the agenda ahead of time so that people can go look at it and see if they're okay. Do you see what I mean? I just think for transparency. So I understand it pretty well, but I'm just thinking if we approve something in 2024 after a lot of discussion, then we go back and approve the 2022 without actually publishing what it looks like ahead of time so that everybody knows. I'm a little uncomfortable with that. I'd like to actually continue this until next time. Hopefully we won't lose the funding because of that, because I support the funding, but I'd like to be able to have it published ahead so the public can look at it for transparency. That's my concern.
So I'm fine if that's the direction the council wants to take. This won't jeopardize our funding at all. The funding for this, it won't be available until January of 2026 anyway. My concern is what was submitted as part of this to get our funding may not be actually the project that we or that you as the council want to see moving forward. And so I don't, we want to be transparent, but are we giving them something that then changes
well,
as we
I'm
go
not
through the
suggesting
design
we change it, but I do think we need to let the public know what we're approving. So certainly the 2022, we can pull it out of the minutes if this is exactly what we approved in 2022. Just put the road design in the agenda ahead of time so the citizens can look at it. So I understand what 2022, I mean, I was here for all those discussions, but what I'm just saying is a matter of transparency, because what we don't want the public to come back and say, but you approved this in 2024, but then you went back and funded the one that we didn't really like in 2022. But it's just, it's kind of confusing, yeah. So I'd just like to bring it forth the next agenda, just have that published ahead of time so people can look at it and understand what it is. And, the compelling argument is we can get the funding for this, phase 1. We can't get it for phase 2, and something needs to be done. But at the same time, for me, it's transparency.
And am I correct in understanding that the only real deadline we have is end of the year for getting the interlocal agreement in place?
That's correct.
Okay.
One thing I think that Scott's bringing up, the night of, we had, pretty heavy discussion 2022, and I know that what was being proposed, the council changed and modified that proposal, and this is what was approved. But I don't know if the public ever saw, because there was so much discussion that night where there might be, I think it's what Scott's saying, there might have been confusion amongst the public. Okay, yeah, you approved this, but what does it really do to my property? Or how does this really look after the approval? This is the first time I've seen, okay, yeah, I remember approving the trail, but now I see what property we're taking, what we're needing to do. Now, I saw this coming in an email from you, Chris. Was it shared? Because I only see 3 other people on this email. Were these pictures shared with the rest of the council?
No, I don't believe it was. I believe I responded just to Councilmember Smith.
Because that might be the other thing. I'm not sure the whole council has even seen.
Well, and Chris is about to explain to you exactly, because we realized we absolutely should have included more detail in the staff report so that people knew ahead of time. Councilmember Smith, you're absolutely right. I think, and Chris, help me if I'm saying this incorrectly, do we really actually have those drawings as specific as what the mayor's talking about? We don't even at this point, right?
The only drawings that I have found are the ones that were part of the original submittal to MAG that includes additional widening on the north side of Timpanogos Highway that I don't believe is part of the scope that we want to see. And that, I guess, was my concern with including that as in the council packet.
Well, yeah, but that's not in the end what we approved. I guess we need to see what we approved in 2022 and make sure the best we can that we can just show what that is before we vote on it. I just think it's important. And I'm not blaming anybody or pointing fingers or anything, because you weren't here then. But we did have some lively discussions, so I just want to make sure that the citizens know that what we're approving is what was discussed and voted on. And does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. And if you can come up with some sort of, kind of drawings consistent with that. So if the only drawings we have was the original proposal, which was a 5-lane highway to the roundabout in Alpine, the people were pretty upset about that. We made adjustments. If we can come up with some sort of design, I don't think it has to be the actually engineering design, but this is what you agreed to in 2022, and this is what we're funding. I don't know if that's really hard, but
Well, which is basically that we're not taking anybody's property.
right, and that was the concern.
It was Brittany that saved the day in 2024, but I couldn't agree more with Scott on this because I didn't understand it coming in. I had to get clarification when I met with Aaron before this meeting. So I can be confident that our residents don't understand it. So,
See, and I'm still confused because I'm looking at some drawings and I understand, are we needing to take, I thought we had to take some individual's property to do the 10-foot trail.
Well, why don't let's let Chris go through and explain to you. We don't have maps tonight because they're not accurate, right, as we just talked about. Let's let him at least explain to you if that's okay, and then you can decide whether or not it still makes sense for you guys to continue.
Does it make sense to go through it all tonight, or should we, if we're interested in continuing it so that we can see the project next time, should we just wait and do it then so we're not rehashing it twice?
Do you want to ask the question now about the north and south of SR 92? Would that be beneficial to you?
I think I guess if there was something that the council kind of had already approved in 2022, then maybe we just go back to what had been approved and see what we can find, and then that's our base for this.
Thank
I
you.
don't think you want to alter from that.
So I'll make a motion to continue. I move that the Highland City Council continue item 3D, which is the interlocal agreement with Utah County on 4800 West expansion project in the intersection with SR 92 until the next session.
So just until the first week of
Yeah,
September.
will that give you enough time, or do you want to continue it longer? I don't want to jeopardize the funding.
I almost would rather maybe extend it to the meeting after that.
Okay, so until end of September meeting.
I'll second it.
Any further clarification needed? Okay, so we have a motion to continue. It was done by Scott, second by Ron. We need a new slide. Or has everyone already voted?
We just voted.
Okay, that continues is 5-0. Okay, we'll now move on to number 4A, which is expedited, which is the Hanover Sewer Repair Change Order. Chris, trustee will give us information.
We talked about this a little bit in the last meeting, just to give the council some advance notice that we had some additional sagging of an existing 15-inch storm drain through there and a clean-out box that was cracked and needed to be repaired, and also some additional curb and gutter. So I didn't put a whole lot of detail on this one, but we do have a change order in the amount of $18,624, and if there's any questions, I'd be happy to address those.
I'll make a motion.
Okay.
So, you just took it off, but that's okay. I move that the Highland City Council approve a change order to Banker Construction for the Hanover Sewer Repair Project for the amount of $18,624.
I'll second.
Motion by Scott, second by Kim. See no further discussion. That passes 5-0. We'll now move on to number 5A, which is the Utah Wellness Survey Participation Opportunity. And this will be discussed by Aaron Wells.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So not looking for a vote on this. We're on to our communication items. Congratulations, Council. So looking really to see if this is an opportunity that Council wants to participate in. So Utah State University for the past about 5 years has conducted what they call the well-being survey, right? Asking a series of how are you connected with your community, and are you connected, and where do you have issues? Kind of very general questions. And they ask as many communities who are willing to partner partner with them to kind of look broadly across the state. So we've done it once in the past few years. We did it in 2022. We didn't in 23 or 4 for a number of reasons, including one of the biggest ones was their survey was hitting about the same time as our city survey, and we couldn't combine them, and we didn't want our residents to get confused, honestly, so we opted out. But the timing has shifted, so where we do ours in the fall and they do theirs in the spring, we want to know if council is interested enough in the survey that you want us to participate. They've reached out to us again. Could you move forward, please? So they'll, like I said, it'll be in the spring. They'll ask a series of kind of well-being questions. I included some of that link in the packet for you to review. And then we can add some city-specific questions if we want, but they only do this as an online survey, not the online or physical option that we do. And so I don't really look at it as a replacement for our survey, but just kind of an extra bonus if we want to participate. In the past, this has been a free opportunity, but their funding has changed, and so now they are asking for a fee in order for us to participate. League of Cities and Towns is actually covering a portion of the fee, so for us it would be $800 or $1,300 if we wanted to ask some Highland City specific questions, and that would include the survey itself and the analysis for us.
Can I ask a question here? So we're going to be sending out our own survey.
Yes.
Which is specific to concerns in Highland. What's the advantage of doing a second survey of just kind of well-being?
And that's my question for the council. If you care about some of the questions that they are asking, so our survey is very kind of issue specific, I would say, whereas this is kind of more broadly. I know we were kind of joking about this over text, but how is your personal well-being, and do you feel connected to your community? And tell us about what you think about population growth and what you think about the economy. They're kind of more broad, open-ended type questions in a lot of ways. So I think they provide some context. They provide some kind of overall us to get a kind of sense of the feel of our residents, but it doesn't really give us with actionable results, which is what we try to intend our individual survey to be.
Okay, so you get the survey. Now what have we done with it? Okay, we find out they're fretting about the economy. They don't like the traffic. I mean, we had this in 2022. What did we do? Now, I do remember Rod Mann. He did a couple things with some mental health nights. I don't know. Some was attended. Is the city soon to be the place people look to come on mental health issues? Is it more of a religious base if they do something? Is it more school based? I was going. Now, it'd be nice to know if they say, hey, we don't feel connected to Highland, okay, we can try to focus on some city events. I mean, but what are we going to do with the data? I think that's the question.
I'm not super interested in this, and if you were to give me a check for $800 or $1,300 today, I can think of some things I would rather buy. I know that's small in comparison to the city budget, but still, if you wrote me a check, that's not what I would buy.
I agree.
I agree. What did we do with the previous ones that were free that we didn't have to pay for? Did we use it other than Rod Mann?
Well, Rod did it before. I mean,
that was before. So, I mean, if we've had it and the results are there, but we've never really done anything as a council, why are we spending city funds to get it?
The one counterpoint to that, and the reason that I'm in favor of doing it, is that I think our results give us numbers about how satisfied people are in the city, but we have no idea how to interpret those numbers. That if it turns out that 75% of our residents are very pleased with the way the city runs, and I looked through the questions and I went out to their website, and there are not lots, but enough questions that tie directly to satisfaction with the city, that it helps us see, okay, 75% looks really good, unless you realize that everybody else is at 90, perhaps. Or maybe we're at 50%, and we're thinking that's really bad, but it turns out everybody else is at 30. That's the kind of context that I think we can get from a broader survey.
It's also only online, which we historically have said isn't a great way of measuring resident feelings here.
So I'm going to ask Chief, this is going to kind of, Chief Williams or Chief Patton. as you look at our mental health, because you're dealing with health situations, some are, like you always say, sometimes you see them in the worst situation that's coming in their life, the event. What would your sense be of trying to find out? I mean, if you look and talk with other communities, does it seem like our community, are we being blind that there might be some things in our community we need to be aware of that's happening and we need to be addressing? And you guys are probably seeing them already on the front line. Is there some things we're not aware of?
I think by and large, most communities are starting to deal with mental health issues, especially when it comes to public safety, because when people don't
If you
know
could
who
please
else
keep
to
the
call-
conversation down out there so we can
When
hear
people
you.
don't know who else to call, they pick up the phone and dial 911 and they get us. And so we do have, I'll give you an example. We had a call today where we had 3 officers out on an adult child that was living in the home that was suffering from mental health issues. And we're seeing more and more of this. We exhausted a lot of our resources about a year and a half ago for the same circumstance or similar circumstances where we ended up calling other additional agencies to help us with some mental health issues that were getting volatile, and there was some physical violence that was involved, and barricade issues. But anyway, it's just mental health. We're dealing with it quite a bit now. I don't know how you.
So if we give survey and says,
I don't
naturally,
know
listen,
how
we
you
know
get
everything.
that into a survey.
I mean, the schools are telling us that they've had to put counselors more in the elementary. Does that make sense? They're trying to get the mental health caught a little earlier. What would you see if we did this survey, we find out what would you see us as a community, or what have you seen other communities do in either of your professions you've heard?
No.
Do they have a great big fair, come to mental health fair, or things that way?
I think that would be helpful. How many people would participate in it? I don't know. There are more resources that the state has been working on over the last several years. The 988 number, for example, the Safe Utah app is getting a lot of use. We're coming to find out, especially since school's starting back up again and people are reporting issues with their friends might be having or making those phone calls that are available. I don't know how you can that into a survey and how you would best extract that from your residents.
I just
I
thought
don't
we'd
know,
ought to
Chief,
get
do you
some.
have anything?
Because
you
mental
want
health
to-
is a concern. I'm just trying to figure out what we do with it once we, anyway.
I just feel like that it's in the schools and in religious areas. And I mean, I know there are cities that definitely do aspects of mental health, PG Cares program and everything like that. It's just something Highland City doesn't do. So for us to do a survey in which we're kind of not doing anything in that area, I'd rather just focus on what we're doing right now.
To give my quick answer to the question you asked the chief, I think that perhaps the top 2 things we can be doing from a mental health standpoint are more about education as to some of those programs and phone numbers and that are available at the state level, and working to have a robust programs in the city, because as people get more connected, some mental health issues tend to decline, and in any case, as you get more connected to people, you have a better support system. Those would be my 2 answers to the things that the city can directly be doing with regard to mental health.
Council, I've heard from 3 of you, maybe not worry about the survey. Is that still the feeling not to move forward with the survey?
I think so.
Do you know, I really appreciate the comments that Doug said, and I do a lot of counseling and treatment for mental health. And I can see the value of getting a better feel for this, but I think the fact that we are going to do a city survey, I probably wouldn't do this one right now, maybe another year.
One thing, Scott, I heard from the chief, and I don't think we've done a good job, is that 988. Does that make sense? I think there's some things we need to maybe be putting out there a little bit better, saying, hey, if you're having a mental health crisis or someone you know, yeah, you can call 911, but here's a better one maybe for that situation is 988.
No, and I think that's an excellent suggestion.
I will make one other just quick point. I have heard this 2 or 3 times during the discussion on this item. If we are saying that mental health is already addressed in the schools and in the churches, so we don't have to do anything, we're writing off all of the adults who aren't religious in our community. And it may be that we decide that that is not something that we should prioritize, and this is separate from the survey. It may be that we decide that that is not a significant enough thing that we're not going to prioritize that high enough, but I think we need to be really careful about just writing off that group of our residents.
Here's where I had a resident, we got in a discussion about where we were at 20 years ago as a community versus now. Our demographics has changed. Does that make sense? I would say 20 years ago there was a lot of, the religious aspect was very, everyone was connected. I don't see that as much. I think our community's changed a little bit with what you're talking, Doug. And I do worry about, okay, I understand the religious aspect. People are maybe going and they're integrating that way versus others, but I do worry about those who are out there. The question is, can we as a city, what would we do to be able to help that? Yep. I think we can go do a survey, but if we don't have a plan from the information, then that's where we struggle.
But I think in this situation, and I understand the issues, but I think having more supported, well-funded community events that brings people together from all walks of life. So I saw people at the Highland Fling from my neighborhood who are not active in the local religion, and they came and I visited with them and different things. So I think having community events that brings the citizens together, not based on their religious background, but for everybody in the citizen as Highlanders, I'd rather put that $1,300 towards that. But I don't know.
Okay, Council, like I said, I've heard already 3 said no. Has there been any change or anything? Just move forward with that?
No.
Sorry. Okay.
I'm with Scott and Tim.
So it just sounds like no survey on for number 5A. Let's now move on to our further communication items. We have number 6A. We have the park and watering and pressurized irrigation system. I just want to also recognize one of my, I always talk about my favorite person in the city is my wife. I want to recognize that we've had walk in maybe one of my second favorite people that's walked in. My daughter Sarah is here for the college, so I just want to recognize her. It's kind of neat to have her here. So anyway, Sarah, welcome. Anyway, number 6A, which is the park watering pressurized irrigation. We're going to kind of discuss a little bit. As a council, we talked about, a little bit about some of the landscaping and things that way. So Chris, can you kind of give us up to speed where we're at? The questions come from the councils. Is it time to start pulling back? Are we watering too much? Where are we at drought-wise with some of our stored water, some things that way you can help us out?
Yeah, absolutely, Mayor. This is a picture of one of our parks that I've just kind of taken as we've started to update the council. You can see kind of
This is Canal, Canal Boulevard and Alpine Highway.
And you can see that. And I did have a discussion with Josh earlier today about the areas that we are still seeing dry spots. A lot of it is our issues that we're still having with sprinklers, but some of it is also bugs. And they've sprayed insecticides with it, but they also, with the life cycle of bugs, he expects some of these to recur next spring, but thinks that we'll have a lot better chance.
Are they treating specifically for grubs?
He told me bugs and insecticides. He didn't get specific with grubs.
Well, grubs is a specific thing. I had to do a lot of research to find out how to do it. And the challenge is, and my wife knows this better than I do actually, things like crushed eggshells or something. But the challenge is there's some that are toxic. They're toxic to dogs, they're toxic to children. So we've got to be careful how we treat them, but grubs have to be treated pretty specifically, and I would hope we would go after them, because my yard has it, my neighbor's yard has it, I've talked to him. And I believe our parks, I can't fathom that they don't have it. I believe that they do.
No, I'm sure this goes, but Chris, I'm just going to kind of get direct. Why did we have to let the city, and I'm just going to be very direct on this, why did we have to let the city get to what the far left picture has to get to, where everything almost looks dead to dry, and it was only water that did it? But how did we now get to this green, and why did it take the council, why did it take the council asking questions about this to get to the green?
You know, and I'll be honest with you, we were addressing these issues before it was ever brought up with the council. And the biggest thing that really impacted us is that we had to load the system using our pump station and using our Murdoch Canal water to prime our system, because the debris basin was down at the mouth of the canyon, and we couldn't use the river water that we would normally use to charge our system. And we know in the past we've seen that we've gotten a lot more of the gookies from the Murdoch Canal water. We just aren't used to charging our system with it. So we had a lot of that at the beginning of the season that we just hadn't expected, hadn't thought about prior to it. I think that's the biggest reason why we had issues at the beginning of the season.
So we've learned. So are the new pumps with filters online now on 6,000?
They went online this week.
Okay,
so they
great.
are, and they do have those filters. So next year, I don't think we'll have to charge it with that. We should be fully back to where we had been before.
So I want to ask, okay, so I was up at the Weir. Before the season starts, we have the grand opening. I mean, me and Aaron are there. We see the water starting to flow. So I don't quite understand. I'm just helping educate. Why is that water flowing there, and yet we're not able to fill our ponds with that water? I mean, what I just heard is we were able to use the water out of AF Canyon because of the Weir situation. We had to come out of the Murdoch Canal. But my eyes saw something different. So share what.
They only had the 12-inch line that was diverting water that we could use, and that wasn't enough for us to fully charge our system. So we had to take the additional water. Most of it was going past it because it was being bypassed so that they could complete the Weir project.
So is that completed now?
That is completed. They'll go back and they'll add the electronic controls to it. They anticipate that taking up to 90 days, but they expect that to happen as soon as October 15th hits. So they expect that to be completely operational before
So next year
spring.
we'll have the Weir completed.
Yes.
Plus the new pump station.
Yes.
So that should alleviate some of these issues.
I think that will alleviate a lot of those. I think there were probably, I've identified what I see as 4 different areas that caused what happened this year. I think those were 2 of the big issues. I think another issue is we were slow to get fertilizer down because we were waiting for the completion of the parks building before we ordered the fertilizer. And with that project being delayed, it kind of delayed our fertilizer. That project should definitely be completed before next spring, and that should not be an issue next year.
So where are we on the parks building since we've talked about that?
Good question.
Oh, you're putting up the fence and landscaping and stuff, but is it almost done?
It's almost done. Those were some of the bigger things that had to be completed. Most of the interior's done. Most of the painting's done. I think we didn't have our meeting last week. We'll be out there again, I think, Thursday of this week. I think we're probably like 98% done on that.
So I'll share. We had some chickens around the community center. I don't know if,
Yes, I loved them.
And so I actually got a hold of the neighbors and said, hey, the chickens seem to like the front door as their area to leave treats. And so I got a hold of the neighbor saying, can you control your chicken? He goes, well, you took down the fence that was keeping them going. Never mind. I guess we are the good people. It's like I was trying to get a hold of him. Can you get a hold of your chicken? Now, when I called, they said, well, they're not that easy to catch. Me and Ron were there. I think it was. And I was going, anyway, okay. So coming back, at the very first, I'll tell you, and as the council, we were all somewhat embarrassed about what the city looked like in June. As I'm driving now, Ron, you always kept saying, and Scott, hey, I was going, wow, our community actually looks really nice.
Yes, thank you. It looks so much better.
However, I still notice, and just, you see a dry spot, and also you see a dead tree, and going, well, if you would have fixed the sprinkler, I think we could have saved the tree, and why is the sprinkler not working? So some of them seem, and like I said, it's just by eyesight, but it seems like, why are we letting some areas where we have trees having some issues? I really appreciate that. I can tell there's been a lot of effort, but why are we still seeing some of those areas where it appears there needs to be a sprinkler? It could be bugs, but the tree's dead, the grass is all dead around it. What are we experiencing there?
I didn't talk to Josh specifically about that, so maybe I can follow up with them and report back to the council on some of those areas.
I mean, does everyone understand what I'm talking about? You drive
Yes.
through and you see, hey, there's a dead tree, it's dead grass. You're going, well, what you're thinking is your sprinkler's not working, and so now it's dried out the grass, and now the tree's dead.
Yeah.
It's just
Are there specific areas that you're
just driving
thinking
around,
of?
usually along Alpine
Highway? Because I know that there's some
SR92.
areas along Alpine Highway that we don't have sprinklers.
We don't have sprinklers.
On the back side of the trail, like just north of Canal Boulevard, there's a lot of dead trees. I don't think we have irrigation systems in that area.
We don't?
Planted trees.
I don't believe so.
Well, they've been
Let me-
redoing sidewalk
Uh-huh.
Did some
in one of
sidewalk.
that section, but there are not a lot of dead trees. The dead trees are more in the median.
Yeah, they're in the medians, more along the
Yeah.
Parkway detail.
So I just think priority in the future, and I think a lot of these things are getting better. I appreciate all the work. And I went to the Highland Glen Park, spent some time there, and it looks wonderful. And I really appreciate that. I guess, I think in the future, we need to prioritize keeping our trees alive, because those trees cost us anywhere between $500 and $1,000 each. And so if we can keep them alive, whatever we need to do would be helpful. Because there are some that we planted just a couple years ago down in the apple blossom area between that, that you spearheaded that. And some of those are dead. So if there's any way to keep as many alive as we can, because it's so expensive to replace them.
Now, speaking of that, we've got trees over here in our Arbor Day cell. I take it they're planning to plant those all this fall, and that will all be gone?
Yeah.
And get new trees? I mean, is it, because I'm looking and going, okay, there's still 30 trees there.
Yeah,
So,
there's still quite a few trees
is that
there.
the plan?
Yes, it is.
And I'm sorry, I'm being direct. I want to tell them thank you. I mean, I'm just wondering why it took us having to do what we had to do to get it green, and why we, and that was some of the questions we had residents at the Fling is going, well, why did it take the council getting so focused on it to get it greened up? Why wasn't it automatically happening? That was the questions we were getting. Is that correct? Is that?
Yeah, I think it comes down to reactive versus proactive maintenance. And right now, what we have is reactive maintenance. And what we need is, you need to take pride in the landscaping and be proactive in maintaining instead of waiting for somebody to start complaining about the work that's not getting done and the dead trees and the dead grass. I think the Parks does a great job, but I think that there's been a lot of frustration in that area. And it's not just been this year, but I would say the number one complaint I've heard from residents over the 6 years I've been on council is, why aren't our parks and lawns maintained better? And then roads.
So, and I agree with that. And I'm just wondering if maybe like January, February, we have things where we start talking about the budget, but maybe have kind of report about what's being done proactively to prepare for the season. So, you've got a lot of these things kind of finished this year, so let's hear what your plans are and that, so we don't get caught into this again. So, we have a lot of important issues, but Kim's actually right. Totally right.
Wait, what?
So it's
Totally?
right.
Totally?
Totally right. No, and we agree on this. But it's the face of the city, and even though it's probably not the most important thing we do, the face of the city is important.
But I will
Because
say,
that's what people
it does
think.
look nice.
Yeah.
Coming from where 60 days ago, I was a little embarrassed, and I think the council's what you're driving down going, whoa, okay, this is maybe looking what we'd like to have it look, to now, seriously, I was driving going, wow. If you drove into our community and saw this, you're going, wow. And with that, now, Chris, you have some historical uses up here. I'd like to understand a little bit what you have up here on the screen.
Before we hit that, Chris, you had mentioned that you had identified 4 causes of the issues. And if I understood correctly, it was the weir, the resultant need to recharge from the Murdoch Canal, the lack of, the lateness of the fertilizer, and I don't think you got to the 4th one.
I think the 4th is that it just always takes us a long time to get our seasonal staff on board in the spring, and it drags on. And we've talked about some internal processes that we can do to help expedite that process next spring.
Well, I'd say it got a little hotter earlier this year,
Yeah, we
did
too,
get
right,
hotter.
than historically.
And because we have so many sprinkler boxes, it's hard to also get out there and adjust.
Sure.
On some things. So
Can we go
Brittany-
back to the slide that has those 3 pictures in it, real quick?
Yeah.
The right-hand side, you see right along that sidewalk.
Yep.
That is very indicative of all along North County Boulevard, and those are weeds. It's nice and green, it looks beautiful, but they are weeds. Are we treating for those?
We are.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, because, it is really bad. This is pretty indicative. It's 3 or 4 feet in, pretty consistently, all the way along there on North County Boulevard.
And whether that's grubs or something else, that is an example of what you were talking about earlier, that's dead grass.
Now, Chris, for a long time, we also were treating a lot of the thorn stickery thorns along some of our trails. Are we still doing that the thorn, where we're going out. We had what was it, 2 or 3 years ago, we actually hired an outside firm to come and spray a lot along our trails. Are we now still also focusing for those sticker thorns that get in everyone's tires or feet? Are we still focusing and spraying to try to keep control of those?
Yeah, that's my understanding, yes. We're still spraying for that.
Goat heads, that's what it is, goat heads. I know they go. Okay, now you're going to talk a little bit about some usage, I think.
Well, I just wanted to look at some of the historical uses that we've had. Yeah, in 2020, we used about 9,400 acre-feet of water. When we had drier years, 21 through 23, we kind of had asked our residents to cut back a little bit, and we got.
When you're saying this stored water, or what's this?
This is water. I believe it's mostly stored water.
So this is what water we pulled down out of Deer Creek.
I don't think it's just Deer Creek. These are numbers that I got from Tayson earlier today. I think this is his total usage.
Total PI usage.
Total PI usage, not just stored water. So from 2023 to 2024, we've gone from about 8,000 acre-feet up to almost 10,000 acre-feet. Right now in 2025, we're on track to match that, maybe exceed what we used last year. As we get towards the tail end of the season, that is when we start using more of the stored water that we get. We can continue to still water as much as we are, but I guess the question to council is, do we want to try to save some of our stored water for future possible drought conditions, for possible future rainy days or the lack thereof? Or do we want to still try to maintain the efforts that we've been trying to maintain with some of our city parks and open spaces?
Council?
I'd like to see.
I could not have supported Scott's comments a couple of meetings ago, and the effort that responded with, which has been fantastic in the mayor's comments. I am concerned once we go to the residents and say you need to start cutting back, that we don't buffer that somewhat. That doesn't mean we eliminate it. I think we still want our parks to be beautiful. We still want them to be, we don't want them all to turn brown. But that said, I think we've got to have some reduction if we're asking the residents to reduce.
And just feedback on that, we have seen a reduction in our overall usage since.
So, I think we had a discussion about this. If we do need to reduce, I mean, this has been a dry summer. We had a very wet March and into April, and then I don't think we've had hardly any rain since the 1st of June, except for a couple thunderclouds. But I think it would be at this point maybe prioritizing the parks.
Right.
And I think when we just finished the Highland Family Park, we've got to keep that looking good.
And it did start to look a little dry this last week. I was a little surprised by that.
I just think that's important because at some point, aren't we going to have a grand opening, or did I miss it?
No, Mayor and I are kind of working on some final touches.
Okay, so I think it needs to look really good.
We want to get all the donors, all that information, get everything put together, and then come
But
to do it.
it might be nice to have a discussion and say, okay, dry year, these are the top priorities we're going to keep green, and just go on down and maybe have a category A and a category B, and just say, But my feeling is my experience as a gardener, if I start the year good and have the fertilizer good, have my sprinklers fixed, I have a good year, even if I have to cut back. If you're playing catch up, which we did this year, that's a problem. So I think if we can, like we've discussed, maybe earlier in the season this next year, and just kind of prioritize what we're going to do, get things ready, get things done early. If we have another dry year, then we'll just say, hey, we've done what we can. That's what I lean towards. But
okay. Good discussion. So let's go back to the stored water situation. How are we doing with stored water up there at Deer Creek and Jordanelle and all that? Have we used a lot of our stored water this year?
We've used a fairly significant portion of it.
More than we did last year? Have we pulled?
I think it's pretty consistent with what we used last year.
Because I know we kept some stored water. I mean, because your question was, Council, do we want to try to keep more stored water than what we had there last year, anticipating if we had a drought, we have a little more to pull on? Because that's what's happened. Some other communities have pulled a lot of their stored. We've always somewhat benefited. We've had a little bit of stored water, meaning the water at Deer Creek has been, we have a certain portion of that water that's
and that water can be banked. right?
Yes.
For future use. I mean, it's a wonderful system. We want to.
Well, I always find it interesting, though, banking water that's not there.
Yeah.
I mean, it's always dependent on how much water is there.
It gives us the right to use it. It
Right.
is confusing. It took me a while to figure it out.
Yeah.
But once I figured it out, it makes sense. It's a wonderful system.
Council, are you hearing what, I mean, I haven't heard, do you want us to pull back to try to keep more stored
Well-
water or just keep doing what we've been doing?
I
I've
would
heard-
prefer, oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
That the council wants us to at least prioritize. Is that
Yes.
consistent?
Yeah.
Yeah, prioritize. And, you know, we generally in August start getting some rain. It's time. I mean, here we are
I
at the
think
20th.
next week we're supposed to start getting a little rain.
Yeah, I think it's going to cool off here.
Actually, I was up the mountains and some of the trees are starting to turn. I was a little surprised this last weekend.
Yeah, I
going,
saw that.
Whoa, we're starting to see some leaves turn. So.
It's dry.
Are you hearing what, you know?
Yes, I believe I have the direction that I was looking for. Thank you.
Okay, let's now move on to our next one, which is number 6B, which is road maintenance plan update, Chris.
So we wanted to let the council know that we have gone out to get some cost proposals for a road maintenance plan. We contacted LTAP to provide us with a road pavement assessment. Part of that assessment will include evaluate the distress and classify the remaining service life of the roads within the city. They'll provide data back to us in a GIS format with a summary report with budgetary properties for the projects that we would look to see. The proposal we got from them also included a field review of public sidewalks so that we could also include sidewalk maintenance as part of this. That would include mapping ADA ramps and detectable warning surfaces for the city. The total cost for both the road and the sidewalk is $18,150. They did give us costs for each of those separately. Should we choose to just proceed with those independently from each other, it was a little bit more, but really less than 20,000, you know, between the two of them it was 10,000 and 9,000. So unfortunately we probably wouldn't have this available until the spring of 2026 if we wanted to go with LTAP. We could also try to go out with other firms, but I think they do a decent job at a reasonable price. And so that was our thought, is that we would just wait and then incorporate that, use this data to rebuild our annual road maintenance plan that we've kind of gotten away from the last few years, and then stick to it, hopefully, once we get that rebuilt.
On the current plans, not this, but going to our current plans of replacing sidewalks on Alpine Highway on the east side, where we have the fence that is going to be replaced. Who knows how much of it will be replaced, hopefully all of it, but whatever is replaced. Are we replacing sidewalks there before those fences are being replaced?
Probably. I know that we've replaced some damaged sidewalk sections, and I don't
We
know that
have,
we've
and
looked
that-
about.
Because we know when those do go in, those, whatever we have there, brand new or old, are going to be destroyed. You can't get that fence in there without destroying,
Well,
is
do
my
we know how much
understanding.
sidewalk, so we've had a handful of those new fence panels go in. I know we've had some sprinkler damage we've had to work through
Yeah.
Oh, it didn't
with
ruin the
them.
sidewalks?
But I don't know if I've heard of any, actually, it was less impactful than we thought it was
Okay.
going to be.
That's good then,
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
good.
Yeah.
Well, the issue is Olympus does this professionally, and I think they have to do this all the time. I don't think they damage a lot of other property.
That's good.
So,
Looks good.
What are the rules and the standards, I guess, for awarding contracts? I'm thinking that we're talking about a single vendor contract. How outside the realm of normal is a single vendor contract?
You mentioned this vendor's cheaper. Is it because they're using students?
They do use students
Is that
to get their
different
work.
than, is that, I mean,
That is different than what most other engineering firms would do. They would use their staff to do that. Some engineering firms will use LiDAR to go through and drive through, and they can get very expensive doing that.
so why would we not want to go out to RFP, like Doug's saying, to make sure it's part of our bid standards?
I'd be happy to go out with an RFP if that's the council's direction.
I love using students, so I'm all for this.
Where we have professional services. We don't have to go through the bidding RFP process. It's just at the election of council, whoever's in charge of the project.
So we could do the
They're cheap
RFP
and
and
they do a great
invite
job.
LTAP to participate. I'm almost certain they are going to be the far cheapest because of how they do things. Or we could just move forward just with LTAP. Happy to do either one. And maybe I'm wrong, but
I don't object to moving forward with LTAP. If that's staff's conclusion that they're very likely to be the cheapest based on what we have seen in the past. We've been happy with their work. I just wanted to understand kind of where that fit in.
I think Kim's comments are spot on. If they're using the students, I think we want to support that. So I really like
Well,
that.
the other thing is also, I think, the dollar amount. I mean, you're also saying, hey, this could be almost a sense we're saying we could have our city administrator in 25,000 issue almost a contract, and this is under that 25. I'm just saying, there's some things that are in that, so.
There's no way that they can include an updated study of like trails and things along with it, as long as we're studying where we want to redo sidewalks and things. That would be my first comment, and my second would be if we're going to pay any amount of money for a study, I think we have to be able to commit to actually following up on the results of the study.
Yes.
I agree.
So going back, would you guys like to go out to RFP, or are you okay with the proposal from the LTAP?
I'm good with LTAP.
I'm okay with LTAP.
That's two. Okay, I think we're okay just to move forward with LTAP.
Okay. And also wanted to discuss sending out an RFP for an update to our transportation IFFP and also our transportation utility fee assessment. The thought was that we could update what roads are impact fee eligible and change our impact fees, and then evaluate our level of service and trip counts for businesses so that we can conform with what we think will probably be language in possible future legislation that has to deal with the transportation utility fee. We would think that usually you're looking at 6 to 8 months for a project like that, so that might fit timely with what could possibly be the result of next season's legislative session.
Okay, the question is, when you talk in the RFP, are you waiting for the legislation to happen?
No, I think we need to put something together now and go out and start the process so that we can have our final report back by next spring.
Now, let me ask you though, but what about the legislators added some other things? Our study just didn't do it. Does that, because they're not going to say, hey, by April 1st, you have to have this study done. It will come in, do we have to be done by January 2027 because we sunset our road fee? Or what date does the road fee actually sunset?
Doesn't it, I thought it sunset when the bonds are paid off, and I thought they were paid off 2 years from this September, which would be fiscal year 28, but we do the payment in September, if I'm not wrong. David, is that right? So we could have them all paid off 2 years from this September, if I understand correctly. So that's kind of where I always understood that the transportation fee was sunsetted to stop it at about the same time as the bonds were paid off.
So let's go back to Chris, the timing of this. Is it important, you think, to have it for this summer, to have them go test all the roads, or is it better to get the legislative bill put together so we know exactly what the criteria is? What was your thought on maybe going out?
Well, my thought was to kind of model it with some of the language that we've seen more recently going through the legislature, and my concern was that a lot of times when they have these bills go through, they're effective like May 1st. So I was hoping that we would be ready with something that could counteract any bills that were passed that have that kind of a start date.
But do you really think a new bill about transportation thing, because no city would be able to jump that fast?
I don't know.
I think it'll be for any new ones, right? The language I've seen of any existing ones have a year to come into conformity. And really, when we're starting with, this is the IFF, so impact fee facilities plans, which will be different than the road fees, the transportation utility fee, right? This is more related to impact fees than it is our utility fee that we charge for roads. For your information, the road fee expires in June 30th of 2028, unless it sunsets. So I think it related.
I was close.
Yes, so I think it relates to, that's the fiscal year that we stop paying bonds. And
Yeah,
so
that's that
when,
fiscal year. And that's the last year we pay bonds, if I understand.
Council, what would you like to do? Do you want us to go out to RFP right now for this? What would you like to do?
Well, I think with the fact that it involves impact fees, I think it's good to know, because we're going to have to find some way, regardless of what the state legislature does, to maintain our roads. And we never know about the C&D funds. Did I say that wrong? C&B fund.
B and C, B and C.
B and C, yeah. I've got too many acronyms sometimes.
I know, welcome to the government.
Yeah, who knows? Okay, I think it's a good idea.
Okay. Now move on to our next item, which is the culinary reducer, pressure reducer valve implementation. Chris.
Yeah, so we've installed some PRVs as part of our system, Mitchell Hollow, Pheasant Hollow, and by 6,000. Now that those have been implemented, I've got this map here that you can see that our master water plan shows a new pressure zone in kind of the southwest area of the city. Right now, that area has pressures as high as 120 psi, which is pretty high. By turning on these PRVs, we'll have pressures in the 60 to 95 psi range. We don't believe that the homes in the area will really be effective because they all have their internal PRVs that should keep the existing pressures in the home relative. They'll just have to be reducing the outside pressures by less than what they are right now. And the thought is that we would start to implement these, turn these live around the first part of September. But when we had awarded the PRVs, I know when the council had asked to be kind of informed of when we actually are turning these on and going live with the new system, so we wanted to give the council that update.
I believe we'd also talked about notification to residents who are going to be affected by that, as we expect not affected, but we see that change. Is that something that we have planned?
We will also coordinate that with our communications.
So that would only be in the darker shaded green area, which we'd send notification, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Interesting. Okay. Any further questions on this? No. Okay, we'll move on to our next item, which is the city investment opportunity follow-up.
Actually, real quick on the PRVs, just thanks to our engineering staff over the years. I know it hasn't been just a now thing, but since this is really a proactive, we talked with Parks about wanting staff to be proactive about things, and this really is a proactive action that we're taking, and I really appreciate seeing that.
Very good point. Thank you for bringing that up. Okay, we'll now move on to number 6D, which is city investment option follow-up. David.
Yep, thank you, Mayor. So a couple of meetings ago, we had a presentation from Ben Sahi with Meter Public Funds. We talked about some options with diversifying our investments, particularly when it comes to the maturity length. The idea is that we would like to help stabilize some of our interest returns to make it easier to budget and rely on some of those. So with Ben's assistance, we went through kind of our cash flows and identified the amount of our idle funds that we feel like we comfortably could invest in some longer term investments. And so the dollar amount we came up with was $15 million. It's right about half, right at the current moment, maybe a little bit more than half of what's in our Utah Public Treasure Investment Fund account. The direction from the council at that time was to do a little bit more research into other firms that offer a similar service to compare fees. So what I have up on the screen here is a comparison. So a couple of things to note. The Zions Capital Advisors, I did reach out to them and ask the question. They got back to me, but wouldn't directly answer my question and just wanted to set up meetings to try and sell me on their product. So that 12 basis point estimate is based on a search result that I found, so it is not confirmed. All the others did get back to me with confirmed fees based on our level of investment. You can see our current investments with the Utah PTIF. A very low fee is charged. I think at the prior meeting, the question was asked, and I said it was 1/2 of 1 basis point. Depending on where you look, that is the answer. But another place that I looked today, which was on the Treasurer's website, said that it can vary from period to period, but it has averaged about 1 basis point. So that's what we used for comparison here. On a $15 million investment, that's only about $1,500 a year. So relatively small. Another note that you can see down at the bottom, the state treasurer's office does have the option to increase their fee if their costs increase. And their maximum fee that they would charge us is 10 basis points. So they're only using up one of the 10 that they can at this moment. So as you can see, the comparison that we did, meter public funds does come in at the lowest fees. It would be about a $15,000 per year fee for the amount that we plan to invest. Others came in fairly close, but still a little bit higher. Morton Asset Management at $16,500, and then Chandler Asset Management, this confirmed amount of $24,000 per year. So we just wanted to share that with the council and get further direction. I think next slide, Jay, has kind of our next steps if the council is comfortable moving forward with investing these funds. At the next council meeting, we would bring forth an investment policy that would outline how the city can invest funds, and then an approval of an agreement with Meter Public Funds. Along with any required approvals for opening and funding the investment account. And then just one note, there is an expected Federal Reserve meeting on September 17th, where it's highly expected that they will decrease the Fed rate. Not guaranteed, but it's kind of looking that way. So we prefer to be able to complete all of this prior to that happening because that has a direct impact on our short-term interest revenues from the PTIF.
So just for a reminder here for me, the PTIF is an annual thing, and these others, meter, will be 3 to 5 year locked
So
in?
the PTIF is completely liquid. It's
yeah, I mean,
yeah,
it goes
so
up, it goes up.
We can request money that we want to pull out. We can request it today and have it tomorrow in our checking account.
They're doing very short-term bonds or T-bills.
Yeah.
Right, which is vulnerable to increases.
Yeah, then meter would be doing, hey, I might lock up for a year or 2 years. So that's why he's saying, hey, if we can get in before all of a sudden the bonds change down, we might be able to get a little higher lock for a year or two at a higher rate.
Yeah, in the investment world, they call it laddering. So we would have a ladder of investments where some are a few months, others are a year, 2 years, probably up to 5 years maximum.
Yeah.
To kind of diversify and
It's
kind
like
of
a
regulate
safety net
how much we're getting.
insurance type thing, so thank you.
Yeah, interest risk insurance is kind of what we're looking for.
So with getting this corporation, it looks like meter is probably one of the more, and I appreciate you're doing more research.
Yeah.
I just think it's good to have comparisons. But it looks like if they can go out a little longer term, they may be able to catch some investments that pays us longer than anything the state has, but we're going to keep a lot of the funds in the state so we can access that.
Correct.
So what you're trying to do is make a little more interest, which cuts down on, well, it increases our revenue for the city.
Right.
Passive income.
What you're saying is we have about $30 million in savings accounts.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
We're going to keep 15 million liquid in the PTIF, but we're now looking to take 15 million as we look at our projects. We'll look out and say, okay, we don't anticipate we're going to tie that money up for a year or two, whatever, with this different fund, which is still in a very low risk, very the same. It's the lowest risk they can, but we're trying to get a little better return on the 15 million out of the 30 that we're operating amongst all of our funds.
Yeah, in an environment where interest rates are decreasing or likely to decrease, it's a great time to do something like this so that we were getting that return on our investment for a longer period than we typically would.
And my recollection is that we're still maintaining a 30% buffer in our PTIF account because it's about 20% that we fluctuate normally.
Yeah.
And so by keeping 50%, we can still use twice as much as we would expect to without having to be concerned about liquidity.
Yeah, we probably could invest even more with meter, but we wanted to be conservative with it and make sure that our liquidity needs are met. If any projects come up that are currently not planned, but we want to do, then we're not scrambling to try and get the cash to do it.
So what if we need some of the money from meter? I'm just worst case scenario.
Yeah,
Do we
worst
get
case
penalized
scenario,
if we have to pull
we're
it
locked
out?
into those investments, but as they mature, especially some of the shorter ones, if we have, some of the 3 to 5 to 6 month ones, as those mature, we can hold on to that cash and not reinvest it. So it's kind of a regular monitoring that we do with Meter, and they'll help us to, we can identify, hey, we need some cash within the next 6 months, and they won't reinvest money as it matures, and we can get it back to do what we need with it.
But we would only need that scenario if we've already used the 15 million from
Right.
PTIF.
Right.
So it's
Which is
I mean,
highly
it's
unlikely to
possible,
happen.
but it's
Yeah.
very unlikely.
Now, the question is, if we need all 15 million, I think what Scott said, could we say, hey, we'll take the hit on not getting the interest, we just want the money back? Is that not what the penalty kind of is, that you just
I
don't
would
get-
think there's a penalty, I would think.
Yeah, I mean, once investors buy that, then they kind of expect, their
get their
interest on
coupon.
it. So, yeah, so we would be obligated to keep those funds invested until they mature. So.
The fact that we expect to get increased interest on this is certainly a bonus. To me, the 13.5 is probably worth it just to, as protection against volatility year over year in our budgeting process.
So is everyone okay moving forward with this Meter public funds?
I am.
Okay, great. Let's move on to our next item. Okay, the next one is a financial report from David also.
Thank you. So last week I sent out an email to the council with this information. I'm not going to spend a ton of time. I'm happy to ask questions, but just speaking generally, things are looking positive. You can note, as far as the general fund, there is a red number up there, which typically isn't great, but it's just because we're still waiting for our last payment of B&C road funds. That 6th allotment that we get sometimes can take a couple of months. So once we enter that in, we'll be comfortably over 100% of our expected revenues. In all of the other funds, really the only thing of note, unless there's other questions, is just kind of what we've been talking about all year as we've done these quarterly reports with our development type revenues, that we've been watching those and noticed that they've been lower than what we had budgeted. That continued through the end of the year. If you scroll down or go to the next slide, you can see our building and development fund revenues came in at about 83%, and that's mainly from building permits and plan check fees being lower than what was budgeted. So it's not something that's new as of this report. It's something that we've been seeing and kind of expecting since earlier on in the year, but it is something to note that we're expending more. We didn't expend our full budget, but we still expended more than what we received in revenue. So we're essentially drawing down some of that fund balance to continue the operations of the building and development fund.
So, Doug, I'm sorry. I should know when you lean forward you're going to say something, but I'm sorry. Okay. In years past, if I remember correctly, and I don't know what we budgeted right off the top of my head in fiscal year 25 for the B&C road funds, but in years past, they've come in somewhere between $500,000 and $750,000. What is our estimate for fiscal year 25? What's out there standing?
Yeah, that's a great question. Let me... May take me just a second to get to that specific line item, but I can tell you.
Forward, I think he's going to say something.
Okay, so we budgeted for 1 million even, and so far we've recorded 704,000. So there's 295 remaining.
So we're getting up to $1 million now, so that's changed.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, now David, can you just walk through to make sure I understand? We're going to look at this building department, the building and development fund. If you look, this was an area when we had building permits come in, we generated a lot of money.
Yes.
And according to the state, they wanted us to kind of set up a special, if you want to say expenditure account, they'll only account for that. How much do you know, how much do we have in reserves in that building and development fund? What's our but what I build up reserves, because if you remember, Scott, we were showing that
Yes.
curve at a certain time. Now we're starting to pull it down. How long do we have until also we're not meeting the expenditures? Because that's usually wages. Most of that expenditures is wages, correct?
Yeah, that's correct. And it's not just our building department employees. There's some allocations
Correct.
from other administrative employees throughout the city that are also being taken out of this
So
fund.
council, this is important. This is where sometimes I'm going, oh, look at how the city's functions. We were able to take some of that building fees and start paying administration's wages and things that way. Well, as it starts to shift, and if it doesn't
We
seem
may
to
have to make
replenish
adjustments.
itself, we're going to have to find areas to pay for those administration fees.
And it was very appropriate to pay for the administration fees out of this because
Yes.
that's what they were spending their time on.
Correct.
But as building fees, building permits decrease, they will be spending less time. And so, yeah.
It makes sense to pull it back. And also, and I, you know, as I was thinking through this today, we'll need to evaluate, okay, how much time are all of us spending on this now? Check those allocations, and if we're still underfunded, then the other alternative, we can also look at increasing our fees in that area, right? To make sure that they are appropriately covering their costs.
What you're saying, you go and you might have to increase your impact fees or things that way, which we need to find out and get done, because there's probably some areas we're a little short on that we should have been, and unfortunately, we didn't get everything at Ridgeview. Hopefully, we would have had, because Ridgeview came and pushed us to try to get some of our fees down. But anyway, how much do you think we have in a savings right now in that building? and
Yeah,
development?
so to begin fiscal year '25, we had $947,000 in fund balance. And so, and then based on this most recent report, we're planning to use $174,000 of that. So we would have a little under $800,000.
How many building permits does this revenue reflect? How many building permits would we have seen in that year to bring that revenue?
I don't have that number.
Rob knows it off the top
Rob,
of
do you
his
know
head.
how many building
No,
permits
but-
we issued?
But let's assume let's assume we're 140, and we're going to be dropping down into that 40 or 60. The revenue, Doug just says, hey, we've got 5 years runway. That's if your revenue stays the same. If the revenue starts to pull down, I'm just saying, council, this is where we have to watch for the next couple years. That right there is what you've got to watch.
So right now, if we're at 800, remember the budget that you've just adopted has us using 200 of that. So now you're down to around 600. So you've got 2, maybe 3 years, depending on revenue, right? Where this needs to be addressed, certainly, to make sure that we can be solvent.
FYI.
And none of this is an unexpected thing. If you had asked us 2 or 3 years ago, we would have said that we may not know exactly when it's going to happen, but we know that we're going to get upside down in that fund, and that's why we have the balance to.
But that's also, be aware, it's coming.
Yes,
This is your
absolutely.
cliff. This is the cliff that's heading towards the city, that we've got to watch.
Yeah. And we still have, just looking ahead, we have the Longhorn property that in the general plan, we're very clear, that no commercial, no retail, it's going to be residential, and the developer's not going to be happy with that. So are we setting this up where we may have a developer that's not willing to develop that property because of the constraints that we've put on that property? And I am 100% for the constraints we've put on.
But he's also held the property for 30 years.
He has held it for 30
At some
years.
time, you have to say, it's now time to take the money off the table, or move it down. It's the same as Perry Homes up in our Area 52.
Exactly.
They'll
Move
make
on if
they'll
you
make a
can't
business decision.
deal with what we've decided, because what we've decided is the right thing for Highland. There's no question that it's what is right for Highland. But I do believe that we may be dealing with a different developer going forward.
So, Rob, have they pulled all the building permits for Ridgeview?
No, in fact, I do have that number. It looks like on a very quick running of a report, it was 89 new build permits within this last fiscal year. But that doesn't include additions, accessory
Only at
structures.
Ridgeview or total city?
Total city.
89 was it?
I might have run the report wrong. I was doing it really quickly, so it may be, I may have missed a permit type, but that's what the number was showing. In Ridgeview, because I had to do this for a moderate income housing report, general plan.
while he's looking for that, I think the budget number that we adopted for the fiscal year 26 budget was anticipating 100, so a little bit higher than what we actually saw in
That would
fiscal year
track
25.
why we're under.
Okay.
Well,
So in Ridgeview, we have 665 units are recorded now. We have 26 left in our final plat that's under review currently. We have issued, when I did this report, 608 permits. So we have a remaining of 83 permits left to be issued.
And so, I mean, we've got some other developments here. Is it, I'm blanking on the name, Foxwood? Foxwood, yes. Have there been a lot of permits issued there?
I think we've seen four or five in Foxwood.
4 or 5. How
Same,
about,
same in Williamsview over there off the 6000 West, about 2 or 3 there. But they have another 20 units between them that could get built out.
Do you know how many lots have been sold there?
I don't know how many.
Just
we don't
looking
get
at their
reports of
map,
sales.
they still have some available that's not sold yet.
I'll say overall, I have, because this is part of the numbers I was crunching, for lots, it doesn't count every vacant lot in the city, but generally we have almost 200 lots in the city that could pull permits in the near future.
Okay.
But some of these end up sitting for a very long time before they're sold. So it's not like I'm going to say in the next 2 years these will be pulled. I just know I have about 200 lots that have been platted, they're recorded, they're entitled to be built, they're just not built yet. But that might be 5 years from now.
This is a very good discussion. I appreciate you bringing this up. Other things you need to go through at all?
Just one final comment, that all of this is preliminary, not final numbers. We are still receiving invoices for fiscal year 25. Just today, we paid a check for the Parks building, about $300,000. So these numbers will still change a little bit before things are finalized. And then, of course, we have our audit process and any audit entries. But as of last week, the numbers that we know of, this is how things are looking. So
On the debt service fund, which seems to be a pretty predictable thing, pretty black and white,
Yep.
how did we end up with more revenue than expenditures? And will that balance out at the end, or how did
So it
how
has
did
to
we
do
get
with
there?
the interest that's due on the debt service. The principal amounts are always exactly what we
Yeah.
expect, but the interest can vary a little bit. So that's where we transferred at the beginning of the year from the other funds to pay debt
Well, it's
service
wonderful.
based on the debt service schedule, but then the interest the bill that we receive is slightly less. So after the bonds are paid off, if there is any balance remaining in the debt service fund, we would then send it back to whatever funds paid it into the debt service to
Okay.
reimburse them.
Okay.
You had mentioned invoices still coming in and some changes, with the exception of the $100,000 for the lobbyist. Is there anything that we're aware of that's going to require a budget adjustment at this point?
Well, no, his is, it's every month, so it's not a one-time hit.
Right, but Aaron had said that we're going to do a budget adjustment to move it from water to roads.
Sorry, I used the wrong terminology. A journal entry is what
entry.
we
Oh, just
call
a
it.
journal
Once
entry?
the, once,
okay.
yes.
But
Okay.
we have it, that is in our budget. When you approved the budget,
Right.
we actually had that in the budget.
Right.
So, okay. Anything else, David?
No, unless there's
Okay,
other questions.
Let's
that's
move
all I
on to our next item, which I'm sure everyone's excited about, which is number 6F, which is election update. Give us some updates, Stephanie.
I should have a song or something, right? So I'm just going to review just a few little things. I know you have all been anxiously awaiting or have already seen the results. So it looks like Scott Smith, Liz Rice, Ron Campbell, and Wes Warren will be moving on to our general election, which will be in November. I think you're all aware of that. Just a couple of updates to be aware of. We are going to be getting our final results on August 26th. We anticipate we'll have those around noon. And then that night, we are planning to do the canvas meeting at 6 p.m. So we'll present those final results for your
That's
approval.
a week from today.
A week from today, yes.
Okay.
So at 6, so we're needing to hold a special meeting at 6 p.m. on the 26th
Just to
certify the election results of the primary.
That is correct, yes.
And I'm planning to be here in person, but in the past, my recollection is that since it's just a very short meeting, it's been pretty common for setting up a Zoom and having people take part remotely. Is that
You're
correct?
talking, it's less than a 5-minute meeting. I happen to be out of town. I can come off the fishing boat, I think, at that time, so. It might be raining in the afternoon, so I need to come off. It's salmon running, so.
It's
Anyway,
5 minutes meeting, but I'm 3 minutes away, so I'll be here.
Would you guys, do we need to have an anchor location? The question is, would you like a Zoom link to be able to just do it by Zoom, or do you want only in-person voting on that?
I'm planning to zoom in and zoom out.
I tell you what, let's do this. Let's set it up as a regular meeting here in person, but I will provide a Zoom link for those of you who would rather Zoom in.
Does it require our signatures? It seems like we signed something.
Actually, it does. You need to sign the certification. So at some point, very shortly after that meeting, if you are not here in person, I am going to need to collect your signature on
Yeah,
that.
so I'll be here.
I'll be
Thank you.
here.
Okay.
Okay.
I will be Zooming in if that's okay.
That
Unless
sounds
you'd rather
great.
have Mayor Pro Tem, are you going to be here or are you Zooming?
I can be here.
So, whichever.
Wonderful. Okay.
Okay, now let's go through a little bit about our elections.
Okay.
You mentioned, so we do have one last final drop. And so do we anticipate, do we have any idea how many votes that last final drop might be?
So that's interesting. I just received a text message from our esteemed colleague at the county. They only have 184 ballots left at the county that they still need to count.
For Highland?
No, not for Highland.
The whole
That's
county.
total. That's for the whole county. So they are pretty much done. I don't
Do you know-
anticipate.
Do you know if that's 180 ballots that they have left to count, or 180 ballots since the last drop?
You understand what I'm saying? That's important, because it's
think
only
it is-
180 countywide. It won't change anything at all. Or is it they've
they've
been
gotta
doing some
cure
stuff
those.
since Thursday at their
Yeah,
what was it,
that's true.
347 drop? Has there been a lot more? I mean, how many do we think will be dropped? And could it change? Because we have our fourth and fifth are somewhat close.
Right.
And so that's what, if you're only 180, there's countywide, there won't be any change really in the percentage. But if there's several thousand or even 5,000 countywide, it could change some things.
No, what she says is she has 184 ballots to count in the ballot center.
So
And
she-
that's going to be countywide.
Do we know that's from Thursday?
That is as of tonight, so I don't. And remember, all the ballots had to be in their possession by 8 p.m. on Election Day. So there's no continual, they're not receiving more drops from the mail, or they're not receiving more. It's just, they're just working through some of those
If someone
cure
wanted to do
issues.
a recount, what percentage do they have to be within? And I know we already asked, what's the percentage they have to be in for a recount?
It's a strange percentage. It's like you take the total number of votes that were cast, and it's 0.25%. And then whatever that difference is between the recounted, like between the third and the fourth and the fifth place. Right now, there's 32 votes between those two. In order for them to be a recount, it would have to be 15 votes, based on the statistics I have now.
It was just, if we fall within 15 votes, it would be up, it would not be the city would issue that recount, it would be up to the candidate or candidates, whoever it is.
It is up to the losing candidate. That's the only person that can request the recount.
Only the losing candidate
Yeah.
can. Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
So-
Other questions on the election at all?
No,
Okay, 6 p.m. on the
6 p.m.
26th.
Yep.
6 p.m.
6 p.m. on next Tuesday. I also want to let the candidates know, while I have you all here, that your next candidate bio, which needs to be resubmitted to the state, they're going to take down the primary bios, and your new bio is due on September 5th. So keep that date in mind, that you will need to resubmit your bio and most likely your photo as well to the state website. And then just keep
all of us, they're just going to remove them all, and we just have to do it again?
Correct, you have to do it all again, yes. You can put up the same one if you want. If you've saved that, you
So
can
you'll
put up
send
the
us
same
the
one.
link?
Yes, and they should be sending you the link too, but they always send it to me, and I always forward it on to you, because I want to make sure you have
Appreciate
that.
that,
Yeah.
by the way.
I
Thank you
imagine they
very
won't
much.
send it till the 26th until it's certified who's going on.
Well, oh, yeah. I probably won't get
saying
any
that since
links
it won't
until
happen.
probably the 5th.
It does.
Okay. And then finally, just remember that all of you who are moving on to the general election, your first financial statements are going to be due on October 7th. That's an important date to remember. And then we are hosting a debate on October 9th at 6 p.m.
Oh, very good.
So
6 p.m.?
6 p.m. on October 9th.
Now, when we say we're hosting, who's going to be, do we have, I know we haven't talked, who's going to be the moderator there, the format, the questions and things that way?
We are working on that right now, so.
But we are, in the newsletter, that an article Stephanie's written up, we are requesting question submissions from the public, and as members of the public council, we would invite you to submit those as well.
Okay, anything else on the election? Any other questions on it?
Got any questions? Okay.
Hey, next
Thank
one
you.
is 6G, which is community development update. Jay.
Thank you, Mayor. For my community development update, it regards encroachment. We discussed a few meetings ago focusing on Beacon Hills next as we wrap up Highland Hollows, which I'm happy to report is going well. We have been able to make contact with and are working with everybody who we've sent out letters or texts or whatever. We've tried to get a hold of everybody and have been successful in that. So that's moving along well. But Beacon Hills is our next area of focus, and what we wanted to do is set up a field trip with the council so that you can visit the area, see the nature of the encroachments. Your support in this is so important, and so we wanted to allow you to come out and see that. We are proposing September 30th as the date for that. Sundown at that time of year is 7:12, so we're thinking 6 o'clock or sometime that might work for the council so that we can get out there while it's still light. Any thoughts or
You say
opinions on
September
that?
30th?
September 30th.
That is a 5th Tuesday.
We're going to lose them now.
Okay. Is that seen at this time work for everyone?
Yeah, works for me.
Yep.
And then also once again, we want to also remember the 9th of October as the candidate.
I have two questions. Going back to the election thing for 1 second, who is going to be selecting the questions that will be asked from the ones that you receive?
I'll do it.
Historically, that has been a staff thing that we've worked on. So we go through the questions, and Stephanie and I pick the ones that we feel are the most relevant to our residents.
And the format is everybody answers the question, but who starts the first time varies.
Yeah, so, and I mean, we call it a debate. It's not really a debate, right? Each candidate answers the same question, right? We don't really do rebuttals. You get an intro, you answer a series of questions. We usually only have time for around 5 just because of, the number of candidates. And then everybody gets a concluding remarks, so.
Good.
High level, that's the plan.
Will the mayoral candidate also be part of the debate?
The intention, last 4 years ago, the mayoral candidate, when we only had one mayoral candidate, they were part of the, I think they gave opening and closing statements, it was my recollection.
I had another question. When I was walking in, did I see an announcement on the door for the senior dinner?
That just got finalized this afternoon, so we haven't sent out, so don't panic, Mayor and Council, we haven't sent out, I don't think you guys have gotten an email about it.
What date was it?
Oh, it got finalized at 5:55, so I'm not sure I wrote it down.
I would just request in the future it would be good if we kind of had a heads up of those dates before it was published to make sure that at least some of us are available to attend.
I didn't see the date.
It was September 8th or something coming up. Is that what it was?
8th is a Monday, the 9th is a Tuesday.
I just briefly looked at it as I was
Do you
coming
know, Jay?
I'm looking that up right now.
This is the senior dinner?
I love this.
What's the age you can attend if you're a senior?
45.
Self-select.
Hi, Mike.
Let's go.
This comes good.
Well, actually, I qualify.
On the, do we have those questions in advance on the debate?
No.
Quote,
Traditionally,
unquote?
no. It's usually been,
Okay, that's what I figured, but I thought I'd ask for somebody. You're welcome.
okay. If, anything else on these community development?
So, I guess, quick question, Mayor. So we're talking about somebody's going to pick the questions that are asked. Have we decided who that will be? Or is that still?
I mean, are you talking the moderator, or are you talking who gets to choose what questions are
we're
asked?
talking about moderator, which people are deciding, but the questions that are asked, I was just curious, who makes that decision?
I believe that effectively, the current plan is that Aaron will make that
In
decision.
consultation with Stephanie.
Right. But
Yes.
I mean, ultimately, if we want to pick a name,
And we've done that. It's not that I feel like I know best. It's that we're trying to be as neutral as possible. I will say Highland is unique in that most cities don't hold candidate events. They have their chambers of commerce do it, or outside agencies do it, because we have a. You know, I feel like I get pulled in two different directions. We need to be neutral because Stephanie is our election official, right? And staff is happy to work with whoever the residents ultimately vote for. But we also want our residents to be informed and have an opportunity to learn from our candidates. And so other cities do not usually hold debates. Highland has still, but in an effort to be as neutral as possible, we've tried to keep current council members or current elected officials not as part of the process because they often, they have relationships with people who are running, very likely. And while staff does as well, our job is to stay neutral, and you're not going to see any of us with signs or campaigning or anything like that. And so historically, it's been us from that perspective.
But I saw you with some buttons on. No.
No. And I voted one.
I'm joking. That was just...
Even at my neighborhood party, somebody asked me, and I said, I'm not telling, even in my city.
Stephanie, what dates will the ballots be mailed for the November 4th?
It's usually 3 weeks before.
It's either 2 or 3.
It's going to be 21 days before the election.
21 days, okay.
Does that
21
answer
days
your question
before.
enough, or do you need a date?
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Okay, I think we've got all of our information. We do have a closed session. Do we have
Sorry, one more, just quick little update, just as a heads up of Planning Commission next week. Hopefully, we'll have our Lot 3 site plan go through. We'll see. We're in the middle of finalizing some things there, and we're also talking about the fence code. A little while back, we talked about the difference between open space fencing and trail fencing, whether there's a trail there or not. So Council gave direction to staff to take that and maybe make some clarifications and take that to Planning Commission. So Planning Commission will look at that next week, and then you'll see that coming up in September.
And that lot number 3 would be a Hawaiian restaurant where...
The plan is for a very specific Hawaiian restaurant. Amobetta's is what they have told me. So.
Okay. With that, if we don't have anything else, we do have a closed session. If we can have down... our meetings just... So if there is any write-in candidates who would like to file, they have until that Friday, the 29th of August, to register as a write-in candidate. So all the rest. Just FYI, on September the 3rd, you have Lone Peak Public Safety meeting. It is anticipated on that agenda that we might be discussing different funding options at that meeting. So, but there's your...
On which one?
The 3rd of September.
Okay. The 3rd?
That's a Wednesday morning.
In the morning.
Oh, and there is going to be on Friday, on September 3rd, there is a thank you dinner that has now been planned for the fling, to tell those who participate in the fling thank you.
And it's at someone's house.
Yeah, it will be at my house. And everyone's welcome. Any of the council would like to come, you're welcome to come to tell everyone thank you for what they've helped out with the fling and things that way. And there has been a survey that was sent out also, so feedback to those participants.
But for those attending, there'll be some discussion about how it all went, but the real discussion is a separate meeting, is that right? Where we download positive and negative.
And the invitation you received actually also included a survey as well. So kind of
So you're doing,
the thought was a survey and that meeting, and then we'll kind of decide from there, do we need an additional meeting ultimately from there?
okay, okay.
And it occurs to me that that survey for feedback is something that would be useful to go to everyone in council. I don't know if everyone in council got the invitation.
Yeah,
thing.
we
So
can absolutely forward
it
it
may
on,
be
make sure
worth,
you all have it.
Sending actually both of them out to, yeah.
I will forward it out to the council right now.
So is this a pool party?
If you'd like to get in the pool, you're welcome to.
I'm just, see if I need to get a new Speedo.
If you feel such.
Just don't get too close or Doug will push you in.
Yeah, we'll have some fun. Okay, with that, we do have a couple items we need to discuss in a closed session. If I can get a motion as such.
I'll make that motion, or do you want to do it, Ron? Okay. I move that the Highland City Council recess the regular city council meeting, which is amazingly early, to convene in a closed meeting in the executive conference room to discuss the character, professional competence, or physical or mental health of an individual, impending or reasonably imminent litigation as provided by Utah Code annotated 52-4-205.
I second it, but I've got a question on the wording. It's saying that we're going to cover both. It
Yeah,
doesn't say or pending or reasonably imminent.
And I believe that's correct.
That is correct.
It is and? But what if we're only doing the one?
No, but in this specific.
In this one, we are, so.
That's why they include it, because we are talking
Got it,
about legal
okay.
and about some mental health or about some employee issues.
Like I said, I second it.
Okay, so I have a motion by Scott, second by Ron. We need to do a roll call to go into closed session. Brittany?
Yes.
Scott?
Yes.
Okay, Doug?
Yes.
Kim?
Yes.
And